Pharrell and Felecia, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So before we dive into Black Ambition, which of course is your nonprofit that's funding Black and Latin entrepreneurs, I want to start with this idea of finding a deeper mission, finding a deeper purpose in the work that you do, because both of you as entrepreneurs, I mean, your resumes are stacked. Pharrell, you are in apparel, you're in skincare, you're running a music festival, which all can seem surface level to the untrained eye, but there is always such a deeper message in every venture you pursue. And Felecia, so much of your work has been about bringing Black communities into the tech sector. So I just want to start by asking, when did having a mission beyond the bottom line come into focus for both of you? Pharrell, we can start with you.
I think, like you, first of all, thanks for having us on here today. Second, I think, as you've already noted, I think our work, together and separately, I think anything that we do is always going to have like that sort of spiritual DNA to it, or else we don't do it. I'm not into the bottom line for me is what actually matters. And then you also, when you were referring to Felecia, I think she should say whatever it is that she feels on her heart or her mind. But bringing Black people in the tech space, and the truth of the matter is that there's a lot of Black people in the tech space. There's just not enough ownership there, and there's just not enough leadership. Leadership positions occupied by people of color. Not enough of those, but they're in the space. They're there. Right? It's just time for Black and Latinx owners and Black and Latinx leaders in the C-suite positions.
So Felecia, what's on your heart and mind?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the deeper why, I think us all in the business space, we always talk about return on investment, but then there's like the ROS, right? There's the return on the sacrifice. And that's a big part of it, right? And so those that have sacrificed so much for all of us to be able to live and breathe, work and play in this innovation economy right now has a lot to do with that, right? And so we owe a return on those that came before us. We owe a return on the Ken Colemans and the Roy Clay Seniors that were Black leaders in the tech space that don't get the shine, that paved the way for all of us to now be able to do the things that we do in the tech space. Our grandmothers and great grandmothers and abuelas and, from Black and Latinx, when we talk about that sacrificed so much for us to be able to build companies, to have an idea, to assemble the team, to go seek the funding, seek the resources, to then now be able to build here. Like, that's why we do what we do. And then I think when you talk about what has happened over the past, just the 2 years alone in the pandemic, and you look at, 40% of Black businesses closing and may not reopen, and the same thing in the Latin American and Hispanic space, we have to combat that, right? We have to create and redesign the future of the economy and opportunities. And that is fueled by the Black and Latinx community, especially when we give them the resources. So why not do this work?
Right, that's beautiful. And, let's get into Black Ambition. So for those who are unfamiliar, what is Black Ambition? I mean, outside of this current panel right now, where there's a lot of Black and very ambitious people, what is this nonprofit Black Ambition?
Yeah, Black Ambition was founded by Pharrell 2 years ago. And really to close the wealth gap by investing in Black and Latinx entrepreneurs. And it's the capital investment, it's the social capital investment, it's building a really amazing peer network, and then assembling the right type of partners to support these entrepreneurs at the highest level. We talk about two big things within Black Ambition is the ambition to be able to dream and build a company, and to be able to create those opportunities and leverage those opportunities. And the other part of that is how do we create uninterrupted opportunities for those entrepreneurs as well? And so we know all the things that have interrupted them, right? Lack of funding, racism, systemic issues, redlining issues. And how do we create an environment in which those entrepreneurs can build their companies with the least amount of interruptions possible moving forward? That's a really big, bold, audacious dream of ours, but that's why the organization's called Black Ambition. And then once we fund and support those entrepreneurs, we're supporting entrepreneurs that can go on and live out like Pharrell's legacy and dream, right? There's a hustle that has come with the work that he has done. There's a hustle that comes with the entrepreneurs that we've supported with Black Ambition and those that we'll continue to support.
Right. And Pharrell, this isn't your first nonprofit, of course. I mean, you have one that's focused, you have Yellow, which is more focused on education. So why now for Black Ambition? Like what made you want to start this nonprofit?
Those are the two areas in my life that I feel like, for whatever reason, I was able to slip through the cracks, and I got the mentorship that I needed. And I think, it's something that should be addressed. I mean, with education, I wasn't the best student. And if it weren't for my teachers, my music teachers who saw something in me, telling me to go that way, and not even knowing what that way was, being in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where there was no music industry at the time and the internet was not what it is now. I don't know what my constellation would have been, but when I look over my shoulders, I see, the brightest, shiniest stars in my constellation were my teachers, who were all saying, go that way. And then with business, being a Black man and having ambitions that, match my, what's the word? I'm a pluralist.
Mm-hmm.
And so being multi-pronged, like every other human being, right? They always try to put us in a box and say, you're going to do one thing really well, and that's going to be your life, right? But being a pluralist and having the audacity along with the ambition, I made a lot of mistakes, wasted money, wasted capital, wasted opportunities because I just wasn't ready. I might have had a good idea. I might have had a couple of people with me, but you need that mentorship. And so, when I think about the two things that have given me so much and the kind of scaffolding that I got, it's like, man, if we actually build a fail-proof system in each one of these areas, there's a lot more kids that won't slip through the cracks a lot more kids that will be able to move through the through their educational career. And it'll be a whole lot more, setting them up to have ambitions to be owners, to be entrepreneurs, to be in a business they didn't think that they could get in before. And so that's really what both of those 501c3s are all about, is like setting up a system so that like we actually, you don't have to slip through the cracks. You can actually walk through the door.
Right. And I know Black Ambition is still very young, but I mean, you recently just had a first year where you had your demo day and you had your first round of entrepreneurs come through. So what impact have you seen so far? Like, I'd love to hear some of these entrepreneurs that you've been funding and the impact that you've seen so far with your efforts. Yeah,
we've seen a lot. I think for the work that we've done in 2 years, it probably has taken some organizations 10 plus to be able to impact, right? And I don't say that lightly. I just say it's a testament when you bring all the resources together. And then when it's an organization founded by someone that's so passionate about entrepreneurship, because they are an entrepreneur, right? And they understand the good side of it, they understand the difficulty of it, and saying, hey, I can bring the right people whose missions and passion from a corporation standpoint, from an individual standpoint, come together. I think that's the other part of what's sometimes missing from Black and Latinx entrepreneurs. Like, they got their head down in their building and they may not necessarily have the networks, right? Like I always say, most Black and Latinx entrepreneurs, we get a round of applause from everyone. We don't always get the round of funding. And when you get the right round of funding and the right mentorship, like Pharrell said, things can be accelerated for you really, really fast. And that's what we've seen. And so we funded 34 companies last year, but we trained and supported at a really high level 300 companies last year. And Livegistics, which was our $1 million winner based out of Detroit, like, they've doubled their team, right? In a market where people are suffering and not being able to get jobs, they've been able to double their team right in Detroit, in a city that for the most part in the past decade has really kind of been written off. And you have a company that's solving major logistics and transportation and waste and climate change issues with this construction company, but technology construction company that they built. And Justin is a third generation in the construction space. And you think about so many of us that are in that space, especially Black and Latinx people in that space, returning citizens that get their job opportunities in that space. And he said, you know what, I don't necessarily need to be out and doing the construction. I've learned from my grandfather, I've learned from my father, and I'm gonna create a company that has impact across the United States and across the globe. And I'm gonna build that right in Detroit. And that was our $1 million winner. They've gone on to raise another $4 million just since July. B Readers is one of our Latinx startup founders that we funded at $250K. They have over 500,000 subscribers to their ed tech company. They've been able to double that in the past 6 months. And so when you talk about the impact of, Pharrell building this company, our partners coming along and saying, hey, we're writing you $1 million check, we're writing you a $250,000 check. And then you've literally seen these companies go on to not only increase their bottom line, but raise additional capital, be massive contributors into their communities as employers, and then moreover, literally change the world with the amount of users that they've been on to bring onto their platforms. That is the ripple effect that we're seeing. And I can keep going through all 34, but I know we don't have enough time. But one of our companies, they're getting ready to launch their product into 250 Target locations all across the United States, another 350 retail establishments on the continent of Africa. That's close to 600 stores that their product is getting ready to be in. Femily, which is one of our female founders, she's getting ready to, her product is now in every single Marriott across the United States. And that started with a connection that she made with Black Ambition. And so it's literally the amazing ripple effects that we've seen with just the 34 companies that I founded. And I can then talk about the semifinalists, right? Those other 250 that, although they didn't get funding from us, they're now in accelerators that they were not able to get into before. They've gone on to raise money as a result of what they learned in the 5-month cohort style mentorship program. Some of our mentors through Black Ambition actually wrote checks to our founders. And I think that's one of the biggest testaments to a mentor believing in your venture is not just, I'm gonna give you advice and maybe make a few introductions, but Trend received $1 million investment from their mentor that they met through Black Ambition. And so those are some of the big highlights, some of the big and massive contributions that we've seen happen as a result of them being a part of our program and or receiving funding.
Wow, it's incredible. And I'm especially fascinated by Black Ambition tapping into HBCU students because I feel like there is a certain kind of energy around younger entrepreneurs, and because they're really thinking about the future that they want to live in. And so when you think about the innovations that these younger entrepreneurs are thinking about, I mean, what is that? I'd love to hear just sort of a snapshot of the innovations that sort of these younger entrepreneurs are really thinking about.
There's nothing like HBCU energy, right? I didn't go to an HBCU, but I married a Morehouse man, and talk about when I went to his graduation, there was nothing but regret. I wish I could do my 4 years a little bit differently, right? And there's an energy, there's an excitement, there is an audacity that HBCU students do something a little bit differently. And their companies are different and exciting and bold as well. And so I'm always excited when I get to interface with our HBCU founders. Khadijah, who's a Hampton grad, was our top prize winner with our HBCU prize, and what she's gone on to do in the hair care space and creating a product. Just, one of her key products is hyperallergenic hair extensions, but she has a whole line of different kind of products and just a really unique take on the market that no one was really addressing in the way that she's been able to address. I think you only get that out of an HBCU, right? Young authors, readers, and what they're doing in the education and tech and book space, has been really impressive as well. And so I'm inspired by our HBCU students. And so KC, when you talk about lessons learned, we talked a lot about the success, but some of the biggest lessons that we learned in this past year of the prize is that we have to dive deeper into our support of HBCU students. And so not just doing the prize again and funding them financially and mentoring them, but we're launching an HBCU tour. So we'll physically have a presence on some HBCU campuses this year. We are launching venture studios. And so an actual entrepreneurship kind of accelerated space on some of those campuses, because that was some of the feedback that we got from our entrepreneurs, especially our HBCU students, was just like, Black Ambition is dope, the support is dope, but when I go back to my campus, there isn't an entrepreneurship center there. And I still need that reinforcement on a local level and that support when I go back home or go back to my campus. And so we really took that as one, a lesson learned, and then two, a charge to say, well, how can we work more closely with HBCUs so that not only do we have more applicants for the prize, that we can spur entrepreneurship activity and mindset and output on as many campuses as we possibly can, and then bring some other partners together. But that was Pharrell's vision of Black and Latinx entrepreneurs, but we cannot forget the HBCU students and how can we be supporting them at a much younger level, at the very early stage, at the idea stage, so that they can really unleash what their Black ambition is and get the support that they need as early as possible.
Right. And, I know following up on that, I feel like an idea is only as good as the person who's bold enough to execute it. So I'd love to hear what you're looking for in a founder. Pharrell, I'd love to hear from you. What are those aspects, knowing that you have, both of you, but we can start with Pharrell, have founded so many different businesses and organizations. So when you're looking into the next generation of entrepreneurs, what are those aspects and characteristics of founders that you're looking for?
I would say someone that has a good idea, has a great story, and was wise enough to be able to reverse engineer that story into, a product or of whether it's a product of experience or a product that is actually tangible, or a company that just provides a product that is a service. I think that's one of the first things, right? Because founders have to be they have to be great storytellers through what it is that they do. They have to be great delegators. You have to be nimble in your absorption of the mentorship and the information that's coming your way, the codes. You got to be agile with and nimble with the absorption of the codes, because that's super important. But then I also think that they have to have that energy about them that shows us that when you get there, that you're gonna reach back, and you'll reach forward. Because this is essentially Black Ambition isn't just these single isolated success stories. We're building a web. We're building a web so that the generations to come has something to fall back on, and that they can stick to. And I think for me, that's generally what I think they should have. Obviously there's some other, more fine-tuned aspects that we think are great qualities as well for leaders. But that's it. And I also wanted to go back to the pertinence of having, HBCUs be a very important pillar in what it is that we're doing. It's also because HBCUs have always been the fertile ground for growth in the Black communities. If you want to see what's going on, you want a temperature check, go to the campus of an HBCU school. And whatever it is bubbling right there at the top, and it's loud. And before you even get around the corner, you hear them shouting it or you hear them singing it. It's in the music, it's on the, placards, it is coming through the bullhorns. And it's because, after 400 years of the stuff that we have gone through as a culture, no longer was this nation or any other nation or any other government able to keep us from our most powerful asset, and that is our willingness to be educated, you know, and our love of education and our appreciation for what that is. And that's what makes, you know, historic Black colleges and universities the most fertile ground for a prize like Black Ambition. I mean, it's literally like, they're like little baby cities of potential.
I love that. And Felecia, I don't know if you had anything to add in terms of like what you're looking for in a founder. I mean, Pharrell, you covered that ground very well, but I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add, Felecia.
Yeah, I mean, ditto everything Pharrell just said. I think the way that he looks at artists, right, and cultivating that kind of talent is the same thing that translates to entrepreneurs, right? You're looking for passion. You're looking for skill set. You're looking for people that can assemble things together, assemble people together, assemble notes together, right? And for all of that, we're looking for the same thing in Black Ambition entrepreneurs. But that one part that Pharrell said at the very beginning, like those that are deeply connected to the community, is something that we're looking for. Like they're running for-profit businesses, but they understand when they get a foot in the door, like it's just not for them to walk through. They're kicking the door open for many more people to come behind them. And that is always the unique thing that we're looking at for the entrepreneurs that we fund and we support. And we've seen that represented in all the entrepreneurs that we worked with and supported in this past year. You know, Ava DuVernay has this quote that if the dream only includes you, it's not big enough. And our entrepreneurs have tapped into a much bigger dream, realizing they're building companies that are going to be influential, they're going to create wealth, but then they're also going to create massive opportunities for the people in their communities and the people across the nation and across the globe. And that's something that I think that a lot of organizations address this, but that's something that is very specific in which we're looking for when we go through the applications for Black Ambition.
And staying on this topic of founders and leaderships for a second, Pharrell, I know as someone who is so spread out across music and business and philanthropy, I would imagine it's especially crucial to find the right people to keep all those plates spinning smoothly. So when you're thinking about who to lead these organizations and companies that you start, like Felecia, what are you looking for? What are you looking for in a leader to execute this vision? You had the idea for Black Ambition, and you know, Felicia's resume is absolutely impeccable, but like, what are those qualities that you're looking for in leaders to run the companies and organizations that you start?
Alignment and philosophy, the diligence to reach further beyond what is expected, which usually comes in the form of like imagination, and execute like an earth sign, you know, execute like a Virgo, like a Capricorn, like a Taurus. Man, let's have the most organized, neat, alphabetized, numerical, you know, organization, so we know what everything is when we need it. But then, you know, also have that fire to imagine and dream and reach beyond.
As a Virgo, I appreciate that. Thank you. Felecia, like, what made you say yes? Because I mean, it's obviously you were doing just fine before joining Black Ambition, and it's a great look. Don't get me wrong. I mean, to join an organization started by Pharrell is you know, great choice. But what made you say yes to this? Like, what made you want to jump on board with something like Black Ambition?
Yeah, I mean, listen to how we've been talking about Black Ambition, right? Like, we haven't been able to talk about Black Ambition without smiling.
Yeah.
And that's when you know, like, the work is meaningful and we are powerful in what we've been able to accomplish. I think building Black tech and startup ecosystems for the past 8 years and making sure that the Black community and the Latinx community was an active participant and a financial beneficiary of the innovation economy has been the work. I would say being able to fund entrepreneurs to do that work is the magic of Black Ambition. And so building the community to support them once they get the funding, leading up to the funding, was the work. But now being able to say, like, we believe in you so much that we're going to align the right dollars and high level support to you is Black Ambition. and it's literally Black ambition. And so for all of that was the easy yes, right? I think to be able to work with Pharrell, for Pharrell, and our partners, and bringing this vision to life is also the deeper work that also made me say yes. I think it's what's made our team say yes as well as we've been building the team. You know, one thing that Pharrell said to me in the very beginning, he was just like, you got to build a team of snipers, right? Like people that can understand the target and hit it. I don't even remember if you remember we had that conversation. And I was just like, yes, that is exactly what we need, because our people require that, right? They require that level of intention and care and support, and people that are going to hit the target for them every single time, because our communities need it, right? Like that is what we've built with Black Ambition. That is what we ask of our founders to also build with that level of intention as they build their team and ultimately have the impact on the community as well.
Right. Right. And I was watching a video of your first demo day, which I encourage everyone to watch because it was so insightful and so heartwarming. And I think everyone could use as many heartwarming moments as we can get these days. But this concept of the uninterrupted founder kept popping up. And first of all, I'd love, if you can just explain what you mean by that, the uninterrupted founder.
Yeah, it's permission to dream, right? But not just like regular dreams, just like as big and as expansive as you possibly can. And I think we as a community aren't always given that permission, nor should we be seeking that permission. And that's what it really means to be uninterrupted, right? And so, what would your life look like if nothing stood in the way of you achieving success? That is what that means. Like, what would you build? Who would you be? What would you create? How would you love on your people? How would you love on your community? How much wealth would you amass? Like, that is what that means. And it's a really big, bold, audacious question to ask, but it's a different question than what do you want to be when you grow up, or what kind of company will you build? And then when we ask that question, we want all of our founders, our partners, our founder, right, to hold on to that vision of what it looks like if nothing stood in the way of you achieving your dream, and then go out and build it. And we are here to support you and take out as many of those barriers as possible. But that's what that question means. And so to me, that is the epitome of ambition, is to be able to create something and not think about the barriers, but only think about the opportunities, and then align yourself, surround yourself with the people that won't stand in the way, but only cheer you on, only pull you up, and only ride alongside you in this journey that you're building with whatever you're building.
That is so beautiful. And, I also think you can't ignore the fact that obviously there are enormous barriers and there are enormous interruptions in being an entrepreneur, specifically an entrepreneur of color. And so I would love to hear from both of you, like, what have been some of those biggest interruptions for you as founders that have really shaped you in a significant way?
Well, for me personally, I consider myself blessed. I ask myself all the time, like, how do all these things happen for me and with me and in support of me? And the only thing I can see is that this is like the universe's work. And when it's giving you a story, and it's giving you sort of the cheat sheet of what needs to be built. So I can't say that's been it hasn't been such a climb for me. I mean, because man, where I come from, like, I can't complain. However, I do know that it's not like that for us most of the time. 98% of the time, it's a struggle. And even when you have a good idea, it doesn't mean you can run a business. And so those challenges because if you ask, what is it, less than 3% of VC founders and private equity, founders and hedge fund folks of color, I think it's less than 3%. And they'll tell you, what's just as hard as the capital or raising the capital, or even harder than raising the capital, is the mentorship. Mm-hmm. And so that's That's just what we see. And again, I'm sorry, it's not exactly what you asked me, but I think it just, I could say, yeah, there's been moments where I struggled, but no, man, no, not like how I know people have had much better ideas. And because they just didn't have the ecosystem to go knock on the door or pick up a phone or send an email and get the codes, they lost out on genius ideas. Everything that we see that has been successful, all these brands, they had the scaffolding, man. They had the scaffolding. They had the resources. They had access to the resources. They had access to the capital. You know, they had people that supported them and believed in them to raise the capital. You know, they had access to amazing mentorship. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing, when you see Apple, you're seeing more than a product. And you're seeing more than both of the Steve, like, you know, Jobs and Wozniak's dreams. You're seeing support. You're seeing ecosystem. You're seeing, you know, mentorship. You're seeing access to capital. That's what you're seeing when you see all that. And then when you see all the holes that are out there in the ether that should be filled by Black and Latinx, you know, entrepreneurs, the holes that you're seeing are the result of the same factors and variables. We just didn't have them, but now we do.
True, so true. And Felecia, have you also been anointed by the universe in such a way? What have been some of your interruptions as an entrepreneur, if you've had any?
No, I definitely have, right? I mean, it's for everything that Pharrell said. And I think not having them and getting them late in the game is also a misalignment of opportunities, right? And so getting opportunities and sometimes not knowing what to do with it because you don't have someone who's done it before, can look at it from a different perspective and give you the right type of advice is part of that process that a lot of Black and Latinx entrepreneurs go through. I know I definitely went through that, right? Not having the right type of funder, right, as well. And I've had VC-backed companies that was a horrible deal, and not understanding that it was a horrible deal because thinking about the predatory nature of financial companies and investors sometimes in Black communities and entrepreneurs, and not having a skilled person or person in my community that had actually received VC funding before to say, that might not be a good deal for you, right? And a lot of entrepreneurs face that. That's something that we try and combat and really kind of arm them and train them around with what we're doing with Black Ambition. I think the mental health part of that as well, of knowing that you're building something really amazing, but meeting a lot of people that don't understand the vision, and oftentimes from a cultural standpoint, is like the biggest dagger to the heart over and over and over again as an entrepreneur. The mental health aspect and self-care aspect of that as well is kind of going out and putting that armor on every single day. You know, that's one reason why we've added self-care and therapists through an Evoke program that we launched with, that we partner with Black Ambition. So like our entrepreneurs get therapists and they get group sessions, they get one-on-one sessions so that we can make sure that they are whole when they're going out and pitching their companies over and over again and probably getting more no's than they should expect. Like for us, it's approaching entrepreneurship from a holistic standpoint of not just here's a bunch of things that you need, but like, are you good as a human and a person? Because we need you whole. We need you to be able to build a team. And we're literally wanting to make sure that they are okay, especially in this environment in which they're building companies and building something that they may not even see the full staircase, like Martin Luther King said, but they're building something. And so for all of the challenges, there are opportunities, but we also got to make sure that our people are whole.
I also want to go back to your question. It's not that I didn't struggle. I did struggle. Oh, yeah. I was just saying, I just don't even feel right complaining. That's all.
That's a good
point. But
I
mean, we've all like had to struggle. In fact, I just wanted to double down on that and just say, you know what, I've always wondered when I take a step back from like when I pull out, when I zoom out, because I think it's important to do that, by the way. You have to have the ability to zoom in and you have to have the ability to zoom out. But when I zoom out from it, my question always was, damn, did you when you were doing this bad deal, it's one of two, and I can't understand which, I don't know which one is worse. One, did you not think that I would figure out that you're taking advantage of me? Or two, did you just not care about when that happened? And I can't figure out which is worse.
It's probably both. It's probably both.
Right. And by the way, and if you think that you think I'm the golden goose, why would you do, you know what I'm saying? Why would you do that? Make me feel something that I've never felt before, and I will be incredily loyal to you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And educate me. I mean, and maybe, here's the thing. Maybe all entrepreneurs are not appreciative in that way. Maybe some of them, get a little bit of success, and then all of a sudden you see them turn into a completely different human being. Sure. But to treat us all like that is just, I don't know. You can miss me with that. And you will. And that's really what, that's really what Black Ambition is about. Because that's the other thing too. You asked us about what we look for in founders. We're also looking to see, you might have a great idea. You might actually can run a business, but if you seem like the kind of person that once you get there, you're going to just steamroll the people around you and steamroll your opportunities, we don't want anything to do with that either. Right. Absolutely. We really want to create a web for the future.
And you're doing that. And I'm curious, how are you thinking about innovation in the context of the nonprofit sector overall? When you sort of step back and look at all these organizations tackling any number of issues, is there anything in the process that's broken? What innovation is needed for a nonprofit to have even more impact?
What is needed? Man, that's a long conversation, right? I think innovative approaches, period, right, is definitely what's needed more. We have problems today that we did not have 2 years ago. We have problems today that we did not have a year ago. And I think in some instances, and in the nonprofit sector, things need to move a little bit faster. And we really need to look at some more innovative approaches of how we solve things that are immediate and how we solve things in the long term as well. I think what has excited me the most is definitely the rise of hybrid companies, the rise of B Corps, where they have figured out this kind of merge between the venture space and the things that they need so that they can tap into other sources of capital that moves just a little bit faster so that they can solve the big problems of today and tomorrow. I would say that interests me, but then I would love to see more of that start to happen. And then I would say the support of the people that are building nonprofits and more holistic support of them as well is something that I think is sometimes broken, that I would love to see more innovative approaches around that as well.
Right. Pharrell, what about you? What kind of innovation would you like to see in the nonprofit sector overall?
That's a big question, and it has a very long answer.
Should have asked it at the start.
I'd like to see. It's interesting. I don't know. I can't tell you about what I think about the 501c3 improvement because there's just so much regulation around it. But what I would say is I'd like to see more for-profit businesses operate like 501c3s, because I feel like if your organization is a business, then you're not always having your hand out. It's a perpetual, self-perpetuating business. And you can afford to fund all these other things because your day job is providing for that. So I did not answer your question, but I'd love to see more businesses, do the charitable work because they have it. You know what I'm saying? Right. Because with 501c3s, we always have to raise money. And it's cool because we have at least our two particular, offerings to the world. I consider tithing back to the universe, right? We're giving back to that which has given us so much. I feel like we're in a great place because people understand with yellow, not everybody learns the same way. People consume information differently. And so there should be some sort of sensory-based curriculum just based on the way that you process information, right? I think that should exist. And thank God we've had so many donors that have gone through situations that relate to that they're just in. And when it comes to Black ambition, people realize that there needs to be more businesses founded by people of color, specifically Black and Latinx folks. So people are in it there. But a lot of other things that need to get covered, it's like, a lot of issues out there that need to get covered. It's not that they're not getting the support, it's just not enough of it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, again, if the private sector would behave with more of a charitable attitude, they have what it takes. It's like people wouldn't have to ask you for money if you were just doing what you needed to do as a business. For example, let's look at sustainability, right? Every company that signs their documentation for an something down to like an LLC. You shouldn't even sign that paper if you're not willing to completely, make sure your company is as sustainable within reason. Yes. But you shouldn't even do it.
Right.
I just think there's just all these considerations that all these companies should be doing. And right now what they're doing is they're using it as marketing. Mm-hmm. It's not, I don't know how much they really mean it as much as is just like a sales ploy for some of them. Some of them really mean it. But I don't know, that's just the way I see things. It's like, imagine some of the most amazing 501c3s with amazing causes that you really care about. Imagine if they were actually businesses. Mm-hmm. It would be a very different conversation, and we'd see a whole lot more action, right? Because it stops other people from saying, why should I give my money? I mean, those people should figure it out. And, with all the selfishness and the divisiveness that we're seeing out there in the world, we wouldn't have to depend on them like that. You want to know why? Because we have these self-perpetual motor-like machines that have businesses that function every day, and they're taking care of their people.
Right.
You did not ask me that.
Yes, I did. Listen, you answered that question and then some, and I appreciate that because, you just spoke so much truth. And just to wrap things up really quickly, when you think about where we are now in 2022, how are you both defining innovation? Because a lot has happened in a very short amount of time. And so I'm curious to hear from both of you how the events of these past couple of years have shaped your thoughts about innovation.
Innovation is still, at its core, it's a new way of doing things, right? And so that definition still rings true to me. But I don't think you can have true innovation if you aren't centering Black and Latinx people at the top of it, at the middle of it, like all aspects of it. You don't. We are some of the most innovative people across the globe, right? We just are. And we've had to be innovative out of necessity. I always tell investors, if you wanted to get in on Uber 30 years, before it went crazy or any of these ride-sharing companies, all you had to do was look at the Black community. That was the Jitney taxi and the Judah taxi in the Caribbean, and in Haiti it's called the Tap Tap. And that innovation existed. We were solving the ride sharing problem by literally ride sharing because of a lack of transportation infrastructure in our communities. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to get in on crowdfunding before the Indiegogos and the Kickstarters, all you had to do was look at the Black church. Yeah. We pass the plate every Sunday, right? It's called, and tithing. And, from one person to the next, from one pew to the next, That's how we funded scholarships. That's how we fixed the roof. That's how we put money into businesses. That's how we took care of, sister whoever that was in the hospital. Like, and that was just here in the United States. In the Caribbean, that's called partner. Throughout the continent of Africa, for literally generations, that's called susu. And so we've always do this peer-to-peer of pooling our money together in order to fund massive projects, in order to seed businesses. Like, that's us from a cultural standpoint, right? Glam Squad and all these like concierge places that will come to you and come to your home and cut your hair. Where else do you find on HBCU campuses? In the dorm room? Like, text your friend. They'll come to you, they'll cut you, they'll tape you up real nice. Your friend will braid your hair and do your makeup. And so you cannot talk about innovation and moving forward without looking at our communities. We've always solved problems out of necessity. I think what is missing out of innovation, and I'd love to hear what Pharrell has to say about this, but like, what's missing is when we did those things, people laughed at our ideas. They said, like, why are they doing it like that? Or is hood, or is ghetto, or is rudimentary, like, and that's not just the Black and Latinx community. Tell me the difference between Airbnb and when the Middle Eastern community would come to the United States and they would share homes, and there may be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of home, but people laughed at that. But now we got Airbnb, right? So like, you at some point you have to say, why are we laughing at how people of color solve problems? Can we fund it a respectable amount of money so that true innovation that has been sparked in those cities actually become global conglomerates, because it has all the ideas and the pieces to do it. We just devalue it so that we can oftentimes take it and run with it, which is the unfortunate part of innovation, when we don't value the contributors and the originators of it.
And Pharrell, take us home. How are you defining innovation in 2022?
Everything that Felecia just said. To me, she took us home.
Yeah, she laid it all out.
Yeah. She just took us home. And so everything that she said was just super big facts.
Yep. And you second it, I third it. So Felecia and Pharrell, thank you both so much for your time. This was such a pleasure, and I cannot wait to see what Black Ambition does next. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and your space, bro.
Thank you.